Welcome. Okay, we are burning the midnight oil today. I took a very late nap after Easter gatherings with my family, and I'm wide awake. So we're gonna go ahead and recap the Lori Vallow-Daybell trial, week two. Um, I did a recap on week one last week, and trial is set to continue again tomorrow or today, Monday, on April 21st. Now, the reason why there will be so many eyes on the trial on today, on Monday, is the fact that Lori Vallow has kind of rested with a question mark. So the prosecution rested on Wednesday, I believe, and then after that, the judge asked Lori if she would be putting on a defense or if she would be testifying. And she said, well, no, I'm going to rest. And then, of course, the judge, trying to cover all his bases, said, okay, well, listen, if you rest in front of the jury um, before the long weekend, you can't go back because they would be off for, I believe, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So they would have 4 days. And so she decided, you know what, just kidding. I'm not gonna I haven't decided yet, if I'm gonna testify or not. And then the judge said, "Okay, well, let me know as soon as possible, ASAP." And that's the last we've heard. We did listen to jury instructions on Thursday. Thursday was very short. They just kind of went over what they could ask the jury, what they will ask the jury. And even then, now the interesting part is before this, I really thought that Lori wasn't going to rest. I was really like, maybe she kind of like heard like, oh, I'm gonna have 4 days. Maybe I can call Lonnie Dworkin by that time. Maybe, I can prepare my to testify. But then the judge did ask her, do you plan on testifying? And she said, as of now, no. And he said, okay, well then can I release all of your witnesses on your witness list that you've subpoenaed? And she said, yes, you can release them because as far as we know, I believe there's a few law enforcement that were both on the prosecution and defense. But yeah, so that kind of made me think, okay, maybe she's not going to rest. Maybe she's just kind of trying to keep people on her toes. Um, but anyway, before we start, I'm sorry, I like just got into the ending. Spoiler alert. I mean, this is real life, not really spoiler. But first of all, welcome to the deep dive with Thalia. My name is Thalia. It's like Dahlia pronounced with the TH. I had to tell somebody how to pronounce my name today, and so I do that all the time. But yeah, so what I'm doing here is talking about true crime and deep diving into other topics and things that interest me. I'm a deep diver when it comes to true crime. I want to know the whys and um, just look into all of the little details that maybe people might miss or people might not care about. So yeah, I don't know. That's what we're doing today. We're talking about the Lori Vallow-Daybell trial. If some of you are not familiar, maybe like need a little bit of a recap. First of all, I recommend going to Hidden True Crimes YouTube channel. They have a recap on this whole case. It's about an hour long, and if you are somebody who's not really familiar with this case, I definitely recommend going there because there's a lot. There's a lot of content about this case. There's a lot of details. If I did a summary, it would take me like 4 hours, and I still would not get like the whole enchilada, green chili chicken enchilada, if you will. But yeah, so yeah, if you really want to, like, if you're like, I really want to know about this case, but I don't know anything, I would recommend going to, again, Hidden True Crimes channel. But if you want like the brief, like explain this to me, like I don't really care. So basically, Lori Vallow-Daybell, formerly known as Lori Vallow, was married to her fourth husband, Charles Vallow, for I believe 10 years. I I should know this by now, but I forgot. But yeah, so she was married to her husband. One day, they became estranged. They became a little bit like, their relationship was rocky. They were in the midst of a divorce. Um, And so when Charles was coming back from Houston on a work trip to come pick up his son, or their adopted son, JJ Vallow, um, he was ambushed by Lori's brother, who just happened to be staying there at her house with a um, firearm and a few loaded magazines. And they claimed it was self-defense. The police believed them. They got off for quite a while, and she wasn't indicted for this crime until after she was indicted for um, murdering her two children, JJ and Tylee, and her now husband, Chad Daybell's wife, Tammy. There are a few other people in the mix. It's a whole saga related to the LDS religion that they are in, as well as just, toxic, narcissistic family ties. This is a case that's affected a lot of people. And we kind of see this as people who are in the true crime world kind of see the Charles Vallow murder as kind of the thing that started it all. Now, again, if you are one of those people who already knows about the case, you'll know that there are other mysterious deaths that happened before this that maybe we'll cover in another video. But Charles Vallow is really the one who sounded the alarms. He said, "My wife, she's gone off the deep end. She's talking about all of these religious things that are not part of our mainstream religious faith. We're LDS. She's talking about being previously married to Moroni, who is an angel in the Book of Mormon. She said she's translated. She says she doesn't need to eat or sleep. Like, it was just a whole bunch of these things. Come to find out, she was um, learning these things from Chad and his books and a whole group of other LDS people who believe in um, near-death experiences, visions, the end times. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. But yeah, as I said, Charles Vallow, his murder, um, I would say alleged, but I mean, I believe it's murder. And also, Lori Vallow is not the one who pulled the trigger. It was actually her brother Alex, who is no longer alive. So she is being tried for conspiracy. So it's not, we're not saying Lori Vallow is the one who solely pulled the trigger, but there's a lot of evidence after seeing like the text messages and the phone records that there might have been more to this self-defense situation than you might see. So anyway, week one of this trial, it was only like 4 days long. They picked a jury pretty quickly. They had many or all of the, as you would call, civilian witnesses, so non-expert or law enforcement witnesses on the stand. So it was Kay Woodcock, Nancy Jo Hancock, who's a woman who went on a date with Charles the night before he passed away, Serena Sharp, who was a friend of Lori's and in her little friend group who did these things called castings, as well as Christina Atwood, who was also in the group. So those were, and Adam Cox, Lori Vallow's brother, or Lori Daybell's brother. So those are the civilian witnesses, and I feel like this was the week one was kind of the part of the trial that a lot of people reacted to. A lot of people had things to talk about, and I understand why. There was a lot of zingers. We got a lot of one-liners that if you mention them, e.g. the green chili chicken enchiladas or the "don't flatter yourself" line, you'll know what we're talking about. But and of course, case testimony, her saying, when Lori Vallow asked, she would ask every single witness, "Did you see me? Were you there when I conspired to, I need to stop saying the word, red rum my husband, Charles Vallow?" She said, "No, I didn't see that, but I saw a lot of evidence that you did." And Lori Vallow was left walking away with her tail between her legs. So yeah, There's a lot of zingers and like important moments. I feel like if you are the jury who is swayed more by like emotion, I know that the jury is supposed to convict somebody on evidence, but storytelling is a big part of trials. So I feel like there was a lot of important moments that the jury might pick up. Now, the jury is not aware currently that has prior convictions in Idaho, which means that they don't know why her daughter, her 16-year-old daughter, who she is convicted of red rumming, Tylee Ryan, is not there on the witness stand, even though she is a big part of this case. Also, if you can hear my dog snoring, I apologize. Um, as well as JJ. Now, Tylee, who was 16, who passed away, she was 16, would be, I believe, 18 or 20 or 19, sorry, right now, and should be old enough to testify on the stand. But Lori Vallow, because, she was convicted of, unaliving her daughter, was not allowed to use any of her testimony because that would be considered hearsay. So, yeah, the jury does not know that Tylee's no longer alive, as well as JJ. They do know that Alex is no longer alive because Lori did bring that up in her opening statement, which was objected to because she said that he died of a pulmonary embolism, even though it was, I don't know. I don't know why they objected. I forgot why. But yeah, so that's where we're at now. Trial started week 2. So I'm going to go through because I didn't actually write any notes down. I was this week I was more so working on things as I was listening to trial, so I didn't really have time to put notes down. I'm getting my news from abc4.com, as well as checking Justin Lum's Twitter feed. Justin Lum is the reporter who reported on the the Charles Vallow case in Arizona, and he's been following it ever since it started. So he has some good, insight. I was really trying not to download Twitter or make an account, but I had to just to see his feed. So if anybody knows of any other place that I can get this information without having to make an account or use it, I don't know. Anyway, I did it for the greater good. All right, so day 5. So the first witness was a expert witness called Dr. Derek Bumgardner. He's a medical examiner with Maricopa County. He was on the stand. He performed the autopsy on Charles Vallow following his death on July 11th. Prosecutor Trina Kaye brought up photos from the autopsy, and Bumgardner described what he observed as he performed it. Now, listen, there was autopsy photos shown. If you are somebody who is watching this live streamed, the Court TV, who is the pool camera, is the news source that is live streaming this, does not show any of the autopsy photos. And we did get a few reportings from people in court, and they talked about who was there, who wasn't there. I believe that Kay Vallow was not there. Kay Vallow is Charles Vallow's sister. A lot of her family was not there to see the autopsy photos because they just didn't want to see that, and rightfully, I understand that. So they looked at his wounds, his toxicology report. They asked if he found Trina asked if the toxicology report found any drugs or alcohol in the system. He said that he did not test positive for drugs or alcohol, and confirmed that he determined the cause of death was multiple gunshot wounds. So he didn't have drugs in his system, which we would understand. Lori Vallow-Daybell, of course, went on cross-examination. He asked about the drugs that they tested for, and she kind of tried to bring in this line. Like I said, the defense, their job is to spread seeds of doubt. And she said, "Did you find any testosterone supplements in his system?" They said that they didn't test for them, but I think she was just trying to maybe put it in the jury's mind that maybe he had road rage, because she is trying to say that Charles Vallow, went into a rage with a baseball bat. So I think that we kind of knew what she was doing there. She, again, trying to spread seeds of doubt of like, maybe he was a violent man. Maybe he was somebody who would try to hit her 16-year-old daughter with a baseball bat. I personally don't think the jury would fall for that, but like I said, a lot of times the jury has to look at all parts of the case, and you never know. And then we have the bamboo shirt. I believe this was brought up in week 1, and I don't know if it was because I don't remember recapping, but she was basically trying to say that Charles Vallow had on a $200 bamboo workout shirt. Now, I don't know why she needed to bring up the price. I think it's maybe kind of giving into her ego, trying to say, like, look at us, like I was married to somebody who could afford a $200 shirt, workout shirt. She said that, are you familiar with bamboo? Bamboo is a very strong fabric, allegedly. I do not know. like the expert witnesses, none of us knew anything about bamboo because we're not bamboo experts. I think she said, like, something about you wouldn't know because you're not a bamboo expert. I don't know. I did not. I don't even think bamboo experts are a thing. I know that textile experts are probably a thing, but if she wanted to spread the seed of doubt, maybe she should have brought in somebody who was an expert in bamboo. Also, I'm sorry. I'm trying a new thing with my microphone. I think in the last one, because I was watching videos, I realized I was breathing into my mic too much, and we were having a Audrey Barretario and Charles-Daybell trial situation. So I'm trying to like put it off to the side, but if I hit it, anyway. So but yeah, she tried to say um there was reports of something called shoring. What the prosecution is trying to prove is the fact that there was evidence of shoring, which means that when you have a gunshot wound and the person is against a hard surface, there will be this reaction on the exit wound called shoring, um, which means that the bullet didn't have anywhere else to go. So, it stopped at the floor, which causes a different wound pattern than if they were standing up, which proves, because we did see that there were evidence of bullet markings on the floor underneath Charles Vallow, that one of the shots was taken when he was already laying on the ground. Now, Lori, this is actually working against her because, like I said, she proved self-defense. Why would it be a self-defense situation if Charles is already subdued, he's already down? She's trying to prove that it was self-defense. So she said, well, are you aware that he's wearing this bamboo shirt? Again, with a bamboo shirt. And of course, the medical examiner said no. And then she asked more about logistics of shoring and if it could be caused by a t-shirt. I believe he said that it could be caused by tight clothing, but it had to be super tight clothing. Like it couldn't be, like maybe some sort of like spandex suit or something like that. But this was a regular loose fitting workout shirt made of bamboo. And he said, even if the material was strong, there would still be no evidence of shoring because, it like the fabric wouldn't have stopped the bullet. Also, I don't know if he mentioned this or if I saw this somewhere else, but it if that would have happened, if shoring would have happened, then I believe that maybe the bullet wouldn't have gone through the shirt. I don't know. So it was just very one of those things that was just very like very Lori, again, trying to spread seeds of doubt. Um, Let me go ahead and look on Justin Lum's Twitter feed. Um, okay, so before trial, um, they did do a motion to preclude her witnesses. As we said, she did not subpoena most of her witnesses or any of her witnesses in time. So they're trying to preclude them, including um, somebody named Lonnie Dworkin, who's a digital forensic analyst, I believe. He was actually the digital forensic analyst on the Jodi Arias case. I don't know if he was working for the prosecution or the defense, but she really wants Lonnie Dworkin to look at Charles's phone and try to find something. I believe she said something about a misreporting or something like that. She was very upset that the prosecution only gave her a report of the filings or of the data on his phone and not the whole data, saying basically trying to say that, they tried to lie in their discovery. Um, and while I do think that maybe like the prosecution could have been a little bit more like transparent, I don't think that it would have done anything like important, because I think what Lori's trying to prove is that there was something on Charles's phone that maybe they misreported. Now we don't know what that is. She's trying to get Lonnie Dworkin to say that, but Lonnie Dworkin's just been one of those people. He's probably a busy guy. And she was trying to say that he could do this in one night, believing that all of these expert witnesses just, are at her beck and call. Of course, I believe they precluded him, saying that, as of now, he doesn't really have any important information to give. And again, he hasn't been subpoenaed. And, but Judge Borevsky, I feel like he's trying to be really careful in this trial, trying to say, like, okay, listen, we don't see any important evidence now, but if we do see it later, maybe we'll bring him in. I feel like this is like something that parents do to kids. It's like, okay, maybe like, just to kind of make them feel better. I don't know if that's like the best parenting tactic, but it seems to be something that he's done with Lori quite a few times. So yeah. Let me see. Okay, I think I went a little bit too far ahead in Justin Lum's. All right, and then we had Mark Sari, a special agent with the Social Security Administration, who was called by the state. He's responsible for investigating fraud, waste, and abuse cases involving Social Security. In 2020, he was assigned for a fraud investigation in the Vallow-Daybell Social Security payout from Vallow's death. Because yes, she is also facing I believe she faced fraud charges in her first trial. I don't know. I don't think she did in this one. But basically, fraud would be, a indicator that this defendant is unreliable. This person is not to be trusted. They did, do some fraud. They did lie about their romantic situation. They lied about who they were living with. So I think it's very important in this case. He confirmed that when Vallow-Daybell married Chad Daybell, her mother and care benefits would have ceased. So basically, she had a son, an autistic son named JJ Vallow. He was 7 years old, and she would be receiving Social Security benefits after the death of his father. So she continued collecting these benefits after she married Chad Daybell, which means that, she should have reported the marriage, and after that, the mother and care benefits would have ceased because those are the conditions. So of course, even though she did get married to Chad Daybell, literally days after his wife mysteriously passed away, and they went to Hawaii, and there's pictures of them dancing on the beach on the certain day. I forgot when they got married. He, he said that they should have stopped. And he testified that Vallow-Daybell did not notify Social Security of her new marriage. Now, I keep saying Vallow-Daybell. She wants to be called Lori Daybell. It's one of those things that I'm like, listen, I'm very oppositional sometimes. I don't want to give her what she wants. She wants to be called Lori Daybell. And I would prefer not to call her by her preferred last name. But I do understand that the second best option would be to be calling her Vallow-Daybell, Vallow is the last name of her fourth husband, who she is currently on trial for red rumming. So I don't know. I kind of interchange. It doesn't mean anything. I guess it does. But yeah, that's just kind of why I say that, because I think a lot of people recognize her as Lori Vallow, and Daybell's just kind of a new thing. Not to mention too, I think you know, I had a lot of struggle with Tammy being called Tammy Daybell after what her husband did to her. And I really was like, we should really call her Tammy Douglas. But then when I heard her sis or her brother's um witness, or no, what is it called? Victim impact statement, he said, a lot of people have said that, you know, why are we still calling her Tammy Daybell? You know, because I believe they call her now Tammy Douglas Daybell. Her foundation is called the Tammy Douglas Daybell Foundation. Um, and he said that, well, her kids still have that name. She is remembered by that name. She was remembered by that name in life. And yes, it is now connected to this person who harmed her and, red rummed her. But you know, that's that's what she was called. And I don't think that it's, you know, um something that she would want for us to call her Tammy Douglas. So I'm kind of taking that logic a little bit, and as much as I don't want her to have the same last name as Charles Vallow, her other victim. My dog is snoring really loud. I don't know how much this microphone's picking up. I do understand that. I don't know. It's just kind of a lose-lose situation either way. So I'm gonna continue calling her Vallow-Daybell or Lori Daybell, Lori Vallow. I don't know. That's just kind of like there's not really a rhyme or reason to the certain times I call her certain names. So yeah. So we have that. Um, Social Security. She's Lori Vallow said, "I have no questions, Your Honor," which is again very telling. Listen, I know that the absence of testifying and the absence of putting up defense is not supposed to be something that the jury could indict her on, or not indict her, convict her on. But again, very telling that there's certain witnesses that she has very little questions for, or no questions at all. Then we have Robin Smith Scott, a claims representative with Banner Life Insurance Company, who was then called to the stand. She testified that Charles Vallow had a life insurance policy for $1 million, and that Lori Vallow was the beneficiary until February 26, when the beneficiary was designated as Charles Vallow's sister, Kay Woodcock. So Lori Vallow-Daybell was not aware of this until she tried to call Banner Life to collect his insurance policy. But this was something that Charles Vallow did tell his date, Nancy Joe Hancock, the day before he passed away. He said that, I changed, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with the relationship, but I changed the beneficiary to my sister because I knew that after all this was said and done, if something happened to me, she would be the one taking care of JJ, his son, his adopted son. So that's, what he said. His date actually told him, maybe you should tell her. He joked and said, yeah, maybe I should. But of course, he never got the chance to. So she contacted Scott to discuss a letter she received stating that she was not the beneficiary on Vallow's life insurance policy. During the call, Scott confirmed that the beneficiary had been changed and stated that she could not divulge much information. Now, a lot of us, like, there's certain key moments in this case where it's like, I wish I could be a fly on the wall when this thing was realized. And this is one of those things that I'm very grateful that she found out on on the phone, that this was actually changed. Um, and you could just kind of tell that she went into manipulation mode. Um, she said, I was trying to figure out what he was doing since we have 5 kids and we've been married for 15 years, which I don't know if it's true. I think 15 years is a little. I think they're married for 10 years. Again, if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Um, and then she was, just rambling, maybe trying to manipulate this person. Maybe the person would be like, "I'm so sorry. Listen, I'll tell you who the beneficiary is." But she stood her ground and she says, "I know he owes a lot of people money, and I was worried if I got money, they'd be coming with me for money. Now I'll be with none." And she's basically trying to say that she has 5 kids, no money. Listen, the prosecution did prove who was living with her at the time. It was JJ and Tylee. No other kids. Charles Vallow had 2 kids from a previous marriage. They were already adults, not living with them at all. I believe there was a time that Colby was living with them, but at a certain time, Colby got married. He moved out of the house with his wife, Kelsey, and they were no longer living with her. So the whole 5 kids left with nothing thing, which is something that makes the insurance agent feel sorry for her. Basically, she's trying to say, like, poor me. Look, I was just left after this. My evil husband changed his beneficiary. Maybe he owes money. Maybe also trying to say, like, maybe he's a criminal. Like, he owes a lot of money. Um, but yeah. So also too, like, it's just very cruel because you will also realize looking into this case that, her saying, "Oh, he owes people a lot of money," she's the one who drained his bank account, actually drained his company's bank account, which was part of the money used for payroll. So she's the one who took his money. Um, I don't know what happened with that. I don't know if there was any financial records or if this will be even brought up um, during trial, but just curious. Um, so she had no questions for this cross-examination, and Scott stepped down. Um, actually, maybe. Okay, let me backtrack. Mark, sorry, um, I believe was questioned in one of her. Again, I now that I remember it, she had this manipulative way of questioning by saying, like, maybe I filed this somewhere else and y'all just forgot the paper. Like, again, trying to gaslight every single witness in this case. She said, like, I think I did file it. Do you have any recollection? Would there be a error in the system? How are things remembered? How are things filed? Like, trying to again spread seeds of doubt of, like, maybe you just didn't see me tell you that I was married to Chad Daybell, even though she did still continue collecting, Social Security benefits. So that doesn't make any sense. But yeah. Anyway, so Banner Life, she didn't have any questions, but I believe Social Security she did. I believe that after she tried to unsuccessfully gaslight the Social Security agent, I think she realized Banner Life maybe has a little bit more dirt on her, and so she decided, you know what, I'm gonna take the L on this one. Then Jeff Moberg went on the stand. As I said, all of the what they would call civilian witnesses went on week 1. So after that, there was only expert witnesses. Um, so again, trial week 2 was a little bit more, I don't want to say mundane, more so like data heavy, information heavy. A time where if you were in trial, you probably needed a notepad and paper to, think of the logistics of things. And so, like I said, for some, it wasn't like there's these like mic drop moments, but I do feel like week 2 was very important when it comes to actually providing evidence of what happened. So then Jeff Moberg went on the stand. He's a forensic scientist at the Arizona Department of Public Safety in the Firearms and Toolmark Unit. Now, I feel like I learned so much about toolmark analysis when I was looking at the Delphi case recaps. Okay, maybe I am getting a little tired. Anyway, and so basically he described how forensic investigation of a gun is complete. He identified the firearms as a Springfield Armory XDM 45 caliber semi-automatic pistol, and testified that the 2 bullets at the scene were fired by that pistol. Um, so that's what he proved. Again, I think maybe Lori tried to, you know, ask if, you know, bamboo or something like that would affect bullet wounds, whatever, I don't know. Again, she also, like, tried this thing where she was like, let's talk about stippling. She's I honestly do not understand why she wants to bring in the stippling. I don't know what she was trying to prove because again, a lot of times when Lori questions, her questions just go on and on and on. I think if she had a tactic of, let me just ask so many questions so people can forget the previous testimony, I think it's working because I honestly don't remember what she was trying to prove. And like I said, a lot of times I feel like Lori tries to prove a point only to say she's right, not understanding the implication at the end of it. She basically tried to ask, was there stippling? I think she asked the medical examiner about this. Stippling apparently is when gunpowder residue, is on like the wound because the gun is so close, which would prove the distance. I believe there was some or not some, I don't know, but again, I think that stippling was also brought up with this firearms expert. Then we have Cassandra Inclan, a police detective with the Chanier Police Department. She was the one in the infamous uh, interview footage. So I didn't recognize her because in this interview footage we just saw the back of her head. But if you ever watched any sort of analysis or just watched the weird, strange interview footage of Lori Vallow just being the calmest person ever right after Charles was shot. This is that detective. Um, so she responded to the scene of Vallow's death on July 11th. She recalls seeing Vallow-Daybell parked across the street with Thalia after she arrived. Now listen, there was a lot of questioning with law enforcement about the parking situation. I do not know. Again, was this one of those things that Lori was trying to prove? Like, if I parked at a certain place, you know, I don't know. I think the whole reason why it was brought up by law enforcement was the fact that, if something happened to your significant other, would you really take time to parallel park across the street? You know what I mean? Um, and I think they were trying to prove that, like, Lori parked and then just sat out and waited for the police to come to her, already knowing what was happening, which they didn't know that she knew. So they were just like, okay, um, so listen, this is where we get in the nonchalant not trend, sorry, nonchalant, the popularity of the word nonchalant in this trial. I believe this was brought up week 1. Again, I'm sorry. Like I said, like the scheduling of this trial was so weird because there was no trial on um Fridays. So I feel like this was all just 1 week of testimony because it was basically only like 7 days. So technically a week, 7 to 8 days. So I think the nonchalant was brought up by another officer, but if not, this is where nonchalant was born. Okay. Inclan said when they asked how Lori Vallow seemed to her, she said it just kind of appeared to be having this kind of ordinary interaction with Officer Krautheim, who was another officer, kind of ordinary and nonchalant. Then they showed clips from the police interview between Vallow-Daybell and Inclan. Oh yes, so nonchalant was brought up in week 1 because it was kind of told when she was at the scene. This was more after the scene. Of course, like I feel like I feel like the prosecutor Trina K tried to bring this up several times, or the word nonchalant in general, because I think she wanted to really get at Lori. I think she knew that Lori would be seething. And there were, like I said, like Lori is kind of an open book in trial. I think she's trying to show the jury her reactions loud and clear. And when she's not happy in court, people know. And so I think nonchalant is one of those buttons that when you say it, it just pushes that button and, gets her mad. So yeah, she said kind of ordinary and nonchalant. Then they showed clips from the interview. Now, after every single clip, because they asked, how do you want your evidence brought up? Originally, Judge Borowski said, okay, let's have it on a thumb drive. Each separate evidence has to be on a separate thumb drive. Um, and the prosecution brought it up on CDs. Maybe it was just because of the machine that they had. So every single clip was clipped and put into like on a CD or DVD. Um, and after every single clip, or before every single clip, sorry, Lori would object because you know how they asked the defense. Does the defense have any objections? She kept saying objections under Rule 6 something something. Under like you should be playing the entire. You should play the entire interview. Which again, I don't know why she's objecting to this. Like playing the entire interview would just prove more as to like why like it just show how nonchalant she's acting. Um, but I think what she's trying to say is that like maybe they're fudging the video. Maybe they're kind of like splicing together clips of the video. But this was clearly like just little snippets of the video that they would play like consecutively. Um, and every single time she would object, the judge would say, "Overruled. I'll allow the evidence." Um, and that you would just kind of feel the tension in the room where it was just like her saying, "Okay, same objection," and he would go, "Okay, I'll allow it." And it was just like one of those things where like I was like, "Why isn't he explaining this?" He did explain it afterwards, but before we do that, um, okay, let's just kind of talk about what she said. She said, so Lori Vallow in her interview said, all these threats on my phone all the time. So this is the part that actually Lori Vallow is trying to show in evidence, saying that, there were certain threats that Charles gave me on my phone. Now listen, there is not proof that he was threatening her. There are certain times where you can kind of see that Charles has had enough and that he maybe isn't talking about her in the best light. But never once did he make the threats that Lori made to him. She said that he was always mad at her and didn't want he doesn't want a divorce, but she says that she didn't like him. Which is weird because she continues in trial to call him my husband every single time, every single chance she gets. Um, so yeah, that was just kind of the the theme. It was like, she was trying to say that listen, like I don't know, I don't remember how many of these clips were actually shown. Because like the whole narrative was the fact that she was trying to say that her daughter Tylee had a bat. Charles tried to take the bat, made her fall down, and blah blah blah. Like so, I don't know how many of these things she showed, and also there was a little bit of a like snafu in the middle, like where some of the CDs got mixed up, and like I don't know, it was just kind of this thing. It was like objection to this, CDs got mixed up. I don't know what happened, but basically, the prosecution was just trying to prove that like this is what she was saying, this is what she was testifying to, and the evidence that I have shown has kind of refuted that. Now we're on Vallow-Daybell's cross-examination, and this was centered on the interview with her daughter Tylee. There was a lot of objections because, as we said earlier, she cannot testify about her daughter Tylee because Tylee is no longer here to say anything. Also, it would be considered hearsay because, again, the witness is not here to say, I didn't say that, or I did say that, or this is what I meant. So she's not allowed to bring any of her daughter's Tylee's testimony or like things that she did. So a lot of these questions were sustained as hearsay, and England didn't answer. And Judge Borowski broke for court for the evening because I believe that England had to continue on day 2. Yeah, day 6, sorry. So yeah, they broke for the evening. Now, one thing I've noticed, and maybe it's just because I am not traumatized, but I'm used to following the Delphi case, but I feel like a lot of times, like, these breaks or, like, times that they conclude court end kind of early or, like, at weird times. Like, it'll just be a random time, and then, like, I feel like the judge is like, "Okay, well, you know what? Let's break for now." And listen, I get that he's, like, trying to be respectful of everybody's time, but it's just curious because and again, like I said, maybe I'm just, like, not traumatized, but, like, used to the Delphi way of doing it where literally the judge was like, we're gonna talk to every single witness. We're not gonna leave. I can hold you here till, like, this time." And like, sometimes court would go on for quite a long time. And they also had Saturday court, so it was the opposite of Arizona where, they had court 5 days a week and not 4. No, 6 days a week, sorry. Math right now, I don't know. Okay, so day 6, Cassandra Inclan, a police detective with the Chandler Police Department, returned to the stand, and Lori Vallow had to continue a cross-examination because she's notorious. Every single day this ends, they ask her, "How much time do you need with this witness?" And she says, "A lot." She never says, "Oh, I don't need much time." Like, it's just and then, of course, it's all these questions about where were you? What time? What exact time? How many times did you text this person? Again, was it 9 or 10? 10 or 11? So, like, she just wants to ask these, like, very exact questions, maybe to kind of prove that, like, this person's memory is not the best. But again, who remembers things from 5 years ago and how many times they texted a certain person? I feel like, you know, there were times where people said, "I don't recall," and they were lying, AKA Serena Sharp and Christina Atwood. But there were these questions that Lori asked, like, certain witnesses, I feel like were not relevant. It'd be like, "Oh, what city did you live in? What city do you remember living in?" This was with her brother Adam. Like, he would name some cities. She's like, "Well, how about this city? You forgot the city." And it's again, I don't know if she's trying to. In a way, I almost feel like it's like a filibuster thing, like, trying to waste time or trying to, you know, make people bored so they're not listening. Like, I really don't know what her call is, or maybe she just, got some sort of advice from her advisory council and ran with it. Maybe they asked her to, like, ask more questions, ask more specific questions. Maybe she watched a trial online. I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, we had to continue with Detective Inclan. Um, and so she asked her what Inclan witnessed on about her and Tylee on the day of Charles Vallow's death. And she asked if her demeanor on the scene, which Inclan described as nonchalant and ordinary. She used nonchalant first, even though it was described before that as ordinary and nonchalant. Like I said, she hates that word. Um, was abnormal for someone in that situation. And Inclan testified that she had not personally been in a situation where her husband was murdered in her home. So yeah, thank you, Inclan. Again, like, this is a non-point. Like, I don't understand. Um, I believe the rebuttal for the prosecution, um, you know, she kept asking, were the firemen calm? And she said, yes. Were the policemen calm? Yes. Were you calm? Blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, Kay Trina Case came back and said, well, okay, listen, you said you were calm. Was your husband shot? No. Okay. Firemen. Did they witness their husband being shot? No. So it was just like one of those things. And it was just like, okay, like, again, Lori, stop asking law enforcement and EMTs and firemen if they were calm. Like, if I called if there was a fire in my home and I called the fire department and they were screaming their heads off and, like, like, super, like, and you can tell, like, sometimes in certain cases I've seen body cam of, like, officers during a fire. They're very firm. Their goal is to get people out of a situation, but at this point they could already tell that Charles was beyond help. He was no longer alive, and now this was a situation of them trying to figure out what happened. That's a situation If you were an officer who saw this stuff, all the time, you wouldn't be, freaking out, you know? I know I'm sure there's situations that you would be freaking out, but this would not be one. And like I said, like it okay, and listen, I get that there's certain times where people read a little bit too much into people's reactions. I think that from watching a lot of body uh, language analysis, um, or behavior analysis, I have one of the key things that I've taken from it is the fact that a lot of times, let's say, like, for instance, let's bring up the Madeline McCann case. Madeline McCann was a girl who went missing while her and her parents were on vacation. They were kind of scrutinized in the public eye. And listen, I don't have an opinion on whether or not if they're guilty. I have looked at the evidence, and again, I haven't gotten much to like conclude what happened. Um, so I'm just like bringing this up like with the facts that we have now. Um, but they were scrutinized because they did a few weird things. For instance, they hired one of the best defense attorneys before they even like needed to. Like there wasn't going to be a trial because they didn't know what happened to her, their daughter. They hired a or I believe a publicist. Now listen, I think a lot of times we see people act unusually. Um, and I think people don't understand that sometimes it might be related to their economic status. For instance, John Bonet. John Bonet, again, another girl who was red-rummed in her house, daughter of two affluent parents. Madeline McCann was also a daughter of two well-known doctors, rich, affluent. Listen, I think sometimes when these situations come up, their entitlement maybe shows a little bit, and that's what kind of makes people seem like they're suspicious. They've never been told no. They've never been told, you're in the wrong in this situation. A lot of times when you are born into or when you are in a higher tax bracket, you are not really blamed for much. So I think maybe that's kind of where their weird reactions come from. They also did several like TV interviews maybe they shouldn't have done. But yeah, people kind of showed that they were guilty because of how they were acting. Now we don't know what happened in both of these cases. So like I said, I have my own theories, but I don't really think they're relevant to what I'm talking about now. But yeah, in this situation, I could see again if maybe I'm going to give Lori Vallow the benefit of the doubt. I do believe she's guilty. That let's just bring that out. But I do think that if she's a person who doesn't really care about anybody, even if this did accidentally happen to her husband, I don't think she would be freaking out. I've never seen a situation where Lori is not cool, calm, and collected in these tragic situations. I've seen anger, I've seen amusement, I've seen smugness. I've never seen her be scared or concerned. Maybe something will come out later. But that's just kind of my observation from seeing videos and like seeing her in court. I think the most we've ever seen like some sort of emotion from her is when she didn't want to look at her kids' autopsy photos in her first trial. But again, that was not a concern. That was not a, oh my God, like I love my kids. I cannot never look at those photos. Is more so like, I don't think I should be in this situation. So, listen, I think the nonchalant thing is not as much of a, gotcha moment as people think it is. But, it's again, it, I have conflicting opinions on whether or not it's unusual that Lori Vallow, even if she was not guilty, would still act nonchalant in this situation. Like I said, I don't think she cares for anybody else except for herself. Like, I think the only time she's acted emotional is when she's trying to be manipulative. So there's just my 2 cents about that. So then we had Detective Ariel Werther with the Chandler Police Department. He was called to the stand. Werther is a subject matter expert on cell phone records, especially map and GPS data. Now, listen, I really, uh, I really wish I had more time to look at week 2. Maybe I'll go back to it later on. But like I said, I was working during most of this trial, so when I was watching trial, I was mostly listening to it because I was doing other stuff. So I missed Ariel's or Detective Werther's PowerPoint. I did look at key moments, but I was told it was exquisite and great. I do think that I'm like, I don't understand why most witnesses don't have PowerPoints. I get that maybe it's hard to do for each case. But I really appreciated that because I'm one of those people that like, I like to see visuals and whatever. Um, so he went to the scene on July 11th. And then the following day he called Vallow-Daybell to obtain JJ's contact information. Um, and she also informed him that she had Vallow's wallet and hotel key. Now listen, I think one of the key moments in this case is the fact that Vallow said, or Lori Vallow said that the reason why Charles was angry at her was because she had taken his phone. That's a key moment, right? Um, Now, let's say, um, okay, so she said that she took his phone, blah, blah, blah. But then when asked for his phone, she said, "Oh, he left it in the car." So which was it? Did she take his phone or did he leave it in the car? I don't know. But remember when Detective Werther was questioned about the situation, he only said that she told him that she had his key card and his wallet because she took his car. She took his rental car, which again, like, I mean, there's lots of situation or like parts of this case where I'm just like, I don't know why law enforcement did this. Again, they thought it was a self-defense case, but they didn't take the victim's vehicle and allowed the defendant to drive away in it. So she had the wallet, she had the hotel key, which means that she had access to the hotel for 24 hours. She didn't tell Detective Werther that she had his phone, at least not according to this record. You would think that would be something she would say along with his hotel key and wallet. And as we all know, or as we've seen previously, when they asked for his phone, Tylee presented it, which means that Tylee knew where it was, which means that she probably would say, "Hey, look, Mom, we still have his phone." So yeah, it just doesn't make any sense that she wouldn't say that she also had his phone, which kind of shows a little bit of like nefarious intent. So he basically asked for JJ's contact information because Lori said that, after this incident, I went into mom mode, which I have my opinions about. Um, and I took JJ to school. Well, first I took him to Burger King because Charles had promised him Burger King, which was not true. Charles actually said that he was going to take him to breakfast at his hotel, not Burger King. And she bought him chicken fries and soda, um, and 2 bottles of water apparently. And so he basically tracked this data saying, okay, listen, if she actually went to the Burger King and she went to the school and she went to Walgreens, how much time would this take? You know, um, would it be usual or would it be unusual for her to be driving this long, coming back 47 minutes later and whatever. So he said the school is approximately 7 miles away from the house, so the idea that one could in 12 minutes go to Burger King, get their order, drive 7 miles one way, 7 miles back, and arrive in the amount of time seemed unlikely to me, which means the 911 call, because again, Lori did testify that she was there when the shot was fired. The 911 call had been placed at 8:36 a.m. which means that the call was not made immediately. It was unlikely that Lori was there for the crime to happen, because she did take longer than, what Alex was trying to report, where he said, "I just shot my brother in self-defense." Like, you would think that, like, as soon as he did that, he would call 911. No, that means that he was waiting 7 minutes. Um, so he did eventually collect Charles Vallow's cell phone on July 11th, which was in the Vallow-Daybell's vehicle after she left the house with JJ and Tylee. He used the GPS data, um, and visited the locations. I think she kind of really shot herself in the foot with this one because, yeah, like, you're gonna take the defendant's phone and just drive it around. Maybe, listen, maybe she was trying to. At first, I was like, maybe she's trying to drive it around to say, like, listen, Charles drove it around, took JJ to school. Maybe she's trying to prove that. But then why would she tell Alex to call 911? But again, so we'll find out in a bit that she was actually on the phone with Alex during a lot of this time, which means that maybe they were planning on trying to say, like, maybe they were planning to get rid of Charles and not say that he was shot, but then realize, his phone's at my house. That's the last time he was shown. It's very unlikely, I'm on cameras. It's very unlikely that they would have seen that Charles was, at the scene or at this Burger King or at this Walgreens. So maybe they decided then they would call 911. Unfortunately, this is a thing we will not really know about unless Lori, has a change of heart and decides to actually confess. Unlikely, but yeah. So that's just kind of where we're at now. Okay, so let's just kind of go on. Okay, we're already at an hour. Like I said, I took a nap and I'm like, I feel good. Like, I don't feel tired, which is kind of concerning because, yeah. Anyway, thankfully I do not work tomorrow because if I did, I would be like screwed basically. But yeah. So yeah, that's where we're at now. Just taking a little, not a stretch break, but like a tea break or whatever. I was like, do I drink something that's calming, like a tea or like a magnesium supplement, or do I drink something that will energize me? So I kind of opted for this like mushroom drink. It has like cocoa in it, which I believe has slight caffeine, so it's kind of a good in between because it'll keep me like alert but not like wired, because I didn't feel like drinking coffee late at night was a good idea either. But I also didn't want to take something that would help me fall asleep, and then I had to wake up tomorrow at a certain time, and then I don't know. Anyway, so let's continue with Vallow's phone. So it's seen at the hotel that he was staying before traveling to Lori Vallow's home. The last text message was sent from the device before Vallow's death at 7:37 a.m. with, I believe, Alex Cox. Alex Cox is Lori Vallow's brother, who Charles actually did fly in to help do an intervention with her. At 7:50, the phone leaves the home. So that means that between 7:37 and 7:50, that is when the incident supposedly happened. Now, I believe it was Annie Cushing's, Tylee Ryan's aunt, who did say that she doesn't believe that, or no, sorry, it was somebody else. She believes a certain thing, but some people believe that. Scratch that from the record, by the way. Some people say that they don't believe that Lori was actually in the room when this happened because she keeps saying this is when the shot was fired. She didn't say 2 shots, which, as we know, 2 shots were fired. So it's kind of up in the air. Again, the police did not do residue testing on her, so we'll never know if she was in this situation. Because when you do have gun residue, like guns like do let off residue like in the room. So even if she didn't fire the shot, it would still kind of be shown if she was in the same vicinity. So yeah, like I said, we'll never know. Last text message sent from the device before his death was okay. I already read that. So at 7:52 a.m., Lori Vallow was seen in the surveillance footage at the drive-through window of Burger King, and that's where she buys chicken fries and a Sprite for JJ before she takes him to school, and she pays. And then Vallow-Daybell. Also, I will note that I believe somebody was seen in the passenger seat of the car, and I think it might have been JJ. So as she was leaving around 8:35, Vallow-Daybell is captured on surveillance video entering Walgreens at 8:17 a.m. That's like 15 minutes later. Or actually 25 minutes later. I don't know. And purchasing 2 pairs of flip-flops, according to location data from Vallow's phone. Then she dropped JJ off at school. Now, this is one of those curious moments, and this is something that I don't understand why this wasn't brought up in court. I don't know if maybe there wasn't like enough evidence, but in this video, Lori is seen with shoes on. And if I can find it, we're gonna watch it. Oh, before I go to that, I also want to mention that Detective Inkland, we're gonna go back a little bit. Detective Inkland did say that after their interview, Lori Vallow chattered the whole way, and she used the word chattered, and I think it seemed to be another word like nonchalant that Lori Vallow was kind of mad about. I think she tried to defend herself. She also did say, so Lori Vallow, I forgot about this, but she tried to say, were you aware that at this Burger King we purchased 2 bottles of water? I think she said, I was not aware of this because, again, she was not in charge of the Burger King situation. She's like, well, no, I only know what you testified to, which is what you told me in the interview room. You told me you bought Sprite and chicken fries. That's it, not 2 bottles of water. She said, well, okay, well, we did. And then she's like, okay, listen, I can't refute that statement, but okay, if you did, you did. What does it matter? Lori said, well, do you know that when people are in high adrenaline situations, they get extremely thirsty? This was objected to. Because, again, this is kind of speculation. I believe the judge allowed it, but Detective Inkland says, well, listen, I don't know. And then she said, well, did you offer us apple juice at the victim unit or something like that? Because they didn't go to an actual questioning room. They went to, like, the victim's center or something like that, which is usually where, like, victims of crimes, because, like I said, at the time, she was kind of seen as a victim. So she's like, yeah, we gave you some apple juice. She's like, okay, so again, do you give people apple juice when they're in high adrenaline situations? Again, that was objected to. I don't think I think she had to question or ask the question a different way. But she did say, like, we do give apple juice, like, we give whatever we have at the time to people, and it's not because you were in a high, like, adrenaline situation. You were just, like, I asked if you wanted apple juice, and he said yes. Like, I don't do this because, you would get extremely thirsty. And my dog is having a dream. All right. Okay, so let's go. Oh, and Lori also did ask Detective Inkland if threatening text messages from Charles did exist on the phone. And then Inkland said she didn't do an exam on the phone, which we'll see that on Detective Werther's because, again, she did not do the exam on the phone. Okay. Sorry, I'm just going through Justin Lum's Twitter feed. Okay, so the video was seen of her buying flip-flops. And I believe we did see the stream. One of the curious things that people have brought up is that she is wearing flip-flops. Or not flip-flops, she's wearing some sort of shoes. And if you'll notice in the police footage, the flip-flops that she buys at this Walgreens are too small for her. So it is kind of unknown, first of all, one, where the shoes went that she had on. Because again, she wasn't not wearing shoes in Walgreens. And why did she buy those shoes if she already had them? Was she trying to get some sort of evidence off of them? I really don't know. And this is something I feel like maybe the prosecution should have asked. But then again, I think the prosecution's trying to teeter this fine line of saying, listen, I know the police didn't do a very good job. I don't want this to be like, a situation where Lori is like, well, listen, you didn't ask about my shoes before? And, I don't know. I really don't know why they didn't bring this up. But if she had shoes on, I don't understand why they didn't bring it. Anyway, let me go ahead and share my screen and we can watch this video. And I do have to present, add to stage. The last time I literally didn't do that. All right, so this is the video. Okay, we're gonna try to pause it.
From them.
Okay.
That's right.
And is this the video?
Sorry, it's kind of fast. Let's go ahead and slow it down. Like this one, because I think this footage is also like sped up for some reason. So we might just get like, okay.
From them.
Okay.
That's right.
I don't know why I'm not getting this. Sorry about that. Okay.
From them.
Okay, stop. She is like, okay, if you can just pay attention to her.
From them.
There is clearly something on her feet. Like a strap of some kind. She has some sort of sandal on her foot. Not to mention, she is fully dressed. Like, she has her hair curled. She has an outfit on. It's not like she just woke up, which means that she probably would have. I don't know if she's a shoe household. Like, I don't know if maybe she like requires people to take their shoes off, but it's just curious that she did have shoes on. And that's something that I don't understand why they didn't bring that up in the trial. Maybe they had their reasons, but Justin Lum did bring that up on his Twitter feed. But I really do think that like that's one of those things that the jury could be wondering like why. Like maybe they did see it in the video. Maybe it just didn't need to be said. Okay, she went to buy flip-flops, but she already had flip-flops on. She already had sandals on. And again, she bought sandals that are like way too small for her. I don't know. Somebody asked Justin Lum, was it ever mentioned today that the Walgreens surveillance video showed Lori entering the store with shoes on? But he didn't really answer the question. He just said, Justin Lum said, yes, me and this other reporter brought up that she was wearing footwear clearly. And I believe did a Fox 10 Phoenix post about it. All right, let's go back to Detective Werther, and I will try really hard to go to Justin Lum's feed before we continue with something else because I think that like there's certain things I don't get why this happened, but there's certain things that like certain people report on. Maybe it's just like what they see at the time. But I don't know. There's some things that the ABC is missing, but it was the like close or the best trial recap I could see that wasn't Justin Lum's. Um, so as she was leaving around 8:35, that's when Alex placed a 911 call. The famous "I just saw my brother-in-law in self-defense" kit one. So yeah, she was able to go to Burger King, go to Walgreens, drop JJ off at school. All or no. So at this time when Alex was calling 911 is when she dropped JJ off at school. Um, so after that, Vallow-Daybell is pictured with her daughter Kylie Ryan on police body cam footage at the scene, and so Werther testified that the timeline established that either the shooting happened a while before the 911 call or Vallow-Daybell was not present for the shooting. And I'm kind of up in the air with this one. Some people believe that she's the one who fired the second shot. I don't really think she did. Again, we'll never know because they never did residue testing on her. But it's just curious that she keeps saying the shot, not knowing that there was two shots for a long time. Also, Tylee testified to that. Didn't hear the second shot. So maybe she did leave for this, or maybe he was shot like immediately after he came in, then she left and didn't hear the second one. I don't know. Um, so Lori Vallow completed a cross-examination. The prosecution objected to many of her questions, and all of the objections were sustained. Because, like I said, she tries to ask the same question like 3 times, maybe hoping that the judge will the prosecution or the judge will not be listening. And now listen, I have like differing opinions. While it is annoying that Lori Vallow asks these stupid questions, um, I do think that John Pryor got like kind of testified the same way, and he's an attorney, so I don't know. I mean, a lot of these objections are valid, but I was like, there's certain times that I'm like, John Pryor was testifying, and I don't know why Lori Daybell is getting like put at a higher pedestal or not pedestal, a higher expectation than John Pryor, who's an actual attorney. But yeah, like I said, different states, so maybe maybe this judge is just different. So then she asked about what was in the hotel room. There was something about could the second suitcase be a briefcase? Again, I don't know why. Like again, why she's asking this question. And then what information was found on Vallow's cell phone? Because again, I think she wants to figure out, like, you know, what's on his phone? What does he have? I think she's also trying to find these threatening text messages, like which we are not aware um exist. So let's see. To go back to Justin Lums before we go on to day 7. Okay, day 7. All right. Actually, I have a better video. Do we want to watch the video of sandals? Let's go ahead and do it. It's already like an hour and 20 minutes in. Let's do it. This one was on the previous, like I said, this is Justin Lum's Twitter feed. Okay, so this is the video, and you can clearly see something on her feet. Now listen, we've all been in situations, or okay, maybe it's more of a woman thing. I don't think I've ever seen a man in this situation, but like like you lose your shoes, or like you're walking home from a night out, your shoes are just hurting you, right? Sometimes you have to get creative. So maybe I'm like, what could she be like? Let's say these weren't shoes. Like, what could she have? But I can see that these are clearly shoes. Like, because my only thought, and again, I don't think she would have had any sort of like supplies for makeshift shoes. Also, am I even sharing? No, I'm not sharing. I'm very sorry. Okay, there. Let me show the video again. I'm sorry. I did that last time. Okay. All right. So let's watch this video and I'll be quiet for a little bit. There's no sound on it. Okay. Yeah. So as you can see, there's clearly something. It looks like one of those like flat sandals with like the strap in the front. It's really hard to see. It's grainy. At first, I was like, maybe she made some makeshift shoes. Maybe she had like some duct tape or something like that. Like, um, you know, again, when I try to give Lori the benefit of the doubt, it's just more so me trying to be realistic because I think a lot of times, like, when we have a case, sorry, I'm looking at my dog. She is passed out. Um, when we have a case of somebody who is just well hated, and rightfully so, I find that there is a lot more scrutiny and oh, and I am still sharing. Okay. A lot more scrutiny and like expectation. So like I said, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt in certain situations. Um, and so, I tried to think, okay, listen, if like I said, women are resourceful. I could make shift a shoe, it wouldn't be like, um, what is that guy's name from The Office? I keep wanting to say Fred, the guy with the chili, where he's at like the wedding and he's wearing like tissue boxes as shoes because they threw his shoes away. Um, maybe it's I've never been in that type of situation, but you know maybe we could 5-minute craft a shoe or something like that. But then I realized, I was like, first of all, one, Lori, this is not Lori's car. She was not aware of what was in the car beforehand, unless Tylee's like, oh, look in the back, like there's a roll of duct tape, which I don't think that's what the situation was. Um, it's just curious, you know. I do think that she maybe had shoes on. Um, and I'm curious to know what happened to those shoes. And I'm also curious to know why the prosecution didn't bring up this fact, because I really think this would have been something that is important. Now, if they didn't bring it up, and, and I doubt they would have missed it, like I said, and I doubt they would have seen it and been like, okay, listen, like, is this something that's not relevant? I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. Like I said, there's certain things that like we think that the prosecution bring up and they don't because it doesn't fit their narrative. Um, why did they not bring it up? Was there something going on? Did maybe they see this as like police negligence? Like the police did see that she didn't have shoes on and they didn't ask her about it. I don't know. I don't know. Curious. Again, another question we may never know. But I did see the video on the shoes. Day 7. Now this day was, I would say, the most damning. The only person on the stand was Nathan Duncan, and he was the third to last or second to last witness on the stand. I don't know who the other witness that wasn't called on the stand was, but the one before that was Detective Moffat, who was the original case detective. I don't know if he retired or like he was not put on the case anymore, but Nathan Duncan was now the detective for the Chandler Police Department who's put on this case. He was the case manager. Um, and was there on July 11th. Now, this is where we find the iCloud extractions from Charles Vallow's phone. So he reviewed emails that were located in the iCloud account, notably from KK Walker 75. And my dog is snoring. So Duncan testified that although the name on the email was Karen Walker, it was connected to an old phone number that belonged to Lori Vallow-Daybell. Because as we know, Lori Vallow-Daybell has had multiple burner phones. So she had to, when she wanted to make some sort of like not valid, but like communication that like, she needed some sort of correspondence, she would use like certain email addresses. So Vallow had saved an email sent by KK Walker 75 to Chad Daybell. I believe they're talking about Charles Vallow. The email appeared to be from Charles asking him to come to Arizona to help ghostwrite a book. Now, we've read this email before, or we've seen this email before. It's basically Charles, aka it was Lori, writing this email to Chad Daybell saying, "Listen, I know you're a famous author. I'm LDS. I used to be a baseball player. Come to Arizona to come write my book. Also, I really liked that you stayed with us during this one conference that somehow Charles ended up not being in town for." So yeah, basically just trying to make an alibi for why Chad would be in Arizona at the time, maybe trying to, make an excuse for his wife that, this is why I'm going to Arizona. So yeah, Charles found that email, and Charles was in Houston at the time, thinking, okay, listen, I'm not going to be in Arizona. I don't want you to go write a book. This is not from me. So he confronted Lori about this. And I believe this is kind of where you get these whole threatening text messages allegations from Lori, because he did say like some things like, I'm going to divorce you and find like a nice, mother for um our son JJ, like that kind of stuff. But again, I think we can all understand that Charles was a guy who like had just found out that his wife of like, 10 plus years was cheating on him, and that he was hurt, And sometimes we say, you know, not nice things when we're hurt. Not only that too, but at this time, she already knew that he already knew that she was having an affair. Um, and so I don't think that these things are necessarily threatening. Um, Again, we'll see. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or today. So, so yeah, he confronted her about the affair. I think she denied it. Um, she and then he said that he was going to contact Tammy Daybell, Chad Daybell's wife, about it, about the email. Now, again, this email is kind of one of those things where it's like we don't know who read it. All we know is that this email was read and then deleted immediately. So maybe Chad found out about this and went on to her email before she was able to see it. Maybe she just saw this as like a prank or something like that. Like, so she deleted it. Maybe she was in denial. I have no idea. Maybe Chad convinced her that this is not real. So, again, this is one of those things we'll never know. Again, at this time, Lori was calling Charles Ned. Ned, or Ned Schneider, was his demon name, who she believed was living in Vallow's body. She believed that Charles was no longer in his body and was taken over by a evil spirit named Ned Schneider. So she kept calling him Ned, saying, "I will destroy you, I will end you," those types of things. And then she did, like, because she did say, like, in a few, I believe in her interview with Arizona Family, she did say, like, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. She does try to deny that she believed these spiritual things that are kind of, I would say, like, a little damning. But it was clear that in the iCloud, evidence, because they did also have her phone, that she did also refer to Charles as Ned to her brother Alex. So she did believe that Charles was possessed. Um, okay, and then this is where we get, and now the whole time we're seeing these text messages on a piece of paper with like the timestamp, and then Trina is, you know, going over these text messages with the detective, before she put these into evidence. Lori Vallow said, well, listen, this is relevance. I object to relevance. Of course, the judge allowed it. Um, and this is where we get the infamous July 9th, 2 days before Charles was murdered, text message from Lori Vallow to Alex Cox. She says, I'm going to need you to stay close to me for the next couple days. Mel too. Mel is Melanie Boudreau Pulowski. Melanie Pulowski is her niece, who was, a key player in this case. She was supposed to go to Utah for a wedding, and she said, I need y'all to stay close to me. So she can't go to the wedding. She said she can't go to Utah. They are planking. She meant planning, but of course, I think the prosecution couldn't like change her words, so they said they are planking some kind of intervention, but want Mel out of the way, so I am left alone. It's all coming to a head this week. So I think she thought that Lori Vallow thought that, you know, they were going to plan this when Melanie was out going to a wedding. I don't know how they would have known that, but um, so far in Alex's testimony and correspondence with Charles, they didn't really say like, oh, like Melanie's not gonna be there. I don't know. Um, and then she continues. Okay, so Lori Vallow continues. It's all coming to a head this week. I will be like Nephi, I am told, and so will you. This is where the famous Nephi text comes in. Again, Nephi is somebody in the Book of Mormon who was well known for decapitating a commander named Laban. Laban had these brass plates that Nephi wanted that would ensure, I believe, his descendants into the kingdom of Jerusalem. So he was like, listen, God, I need these plates. Can you give me like a pass to get these plates in any way that I can? And God was like, yeah, here's your little murder pass. You can do it. I said so. Like, anybody tries to get to you, just like refer them to me. So basically, it was a justified homicide. And there are several of these in the Book of Mormon, in Visions of Glory, which is another LDS book, and also in the Bible. So, yeah, she said, I will be like Nephi, and so will you. So she's talking to her brother Alex. Again, this was one of the first lines in Trina Kay's opening statement, and I think it's very damning. So then we see messages between Vallow-Daybell and several of her family members, her mother, Janice Cox, her sister, Summer Shiflet, or Summer Shizlet, because she misspelled her name, and her niece, Melanie Boudreau. They show that they were working to keep her apart from Adam on July 10th. So on July 10th, they are actually saying, listen, somehow she figured out or found out that Adam was coming. They said, do you need me to hide you? Like Summer actually said, like, how about you stay at my apartment? I'll tell Zach Cox, who Zach Cox was Adam Cox's son, or is Adam Cox's son. He's still alive. I can tell Zach that I'm kenneling my dog, and then you could just stay at my house. Nobody will know where you are. So basically, like they're trying to hide her from Charles, because it is Lori Vallow's MO to tell her family members whenever somebody says something she doesn't like, or she's, this person knows too much, she will say, don't talk to this person. So she said, don't talk to Charles. Charles is cheating on me. Charles is crazy. So her family listened to her. And I did see a recap on this day of Lori Vallow's first cousin, Megan Connor, who was also related to, her mother and her sister, talk about how this was one of those days that once she figured out, I know now who was complicit in this case. Like that was the answer she needed. The closure. I wouldn't say closure, but like, just like the general like information that she needed. So yeah, I don't know. So that was one of those things where it's like we didn't really know what the family knew. A lot of them tried to say, like, listen, we didn't know anything, we're kept in the dark. But you can kind of see here now, do I think that they were aware of the whole plan? Again, I'm not sure. I think this family has a lot of unsaid um, intent. They kind of have an MO of being gone when these things happen. Summer Shiflet was going to New York City during this weekend. Um, they're always in Hawaii when they were in Hawaii when their daughter you wouldn't even say Janice or Shannon. It's not. Um their first daughter. I'm sorry. Sometimes names are like I forgot her name. Okay, anyway, their first daughter passed away when the whole family was in Hawaii on vacation. Again, Lori's MO is that and it seems to be like the family's MO to like whenever something bad happens, they just happen to not be in the area. Summer was not there at the time. She's going to New York. I don't know how that coincided. Um, but yeah, it just was curious that I think sometimes the family they know when the fire gets too hot, they like leave. That's their thing. They want to be avoidant. They want to be like unknowing of these situations because then they can't testify to that. They can say, "Oh, I wasn't there. I don't know what happened." Because like I said, I think they want to have the option to throw people under the bus when it's convenient to them, and if they know too much, then they can't lie. But yeah, I really don't know like how much they knew about the whole plan between Alex and Lori, but I do think that maybe they knew that like um this intervention was happening, so it was gonna get ugly. So yeah. Um okay, this is also where they bring into evidence um the messages between Lori and Chad. Thankfully, the Loinfire texts were not read. I feel like I should read them on this channel one day, maybe after this trial's done, because they are cringy as hell. And I do think that there's some parallels between these texts and certain pop culture references. So it'd be interesting to kind of analyze that. But yeah, we did see a lot of these romantic messages exchanged. Lori did object to relevance. Again, it was overruled because the relevance is the fact that you were having an obvious affair between you and Chad, who's also married at the time. Before that event, there was no obviously romantic messages. So she wasn't really being romantic, at least on this phone that they acquired between her and Chad. Um, it wasn't until after Charles passed away when she started, upping up the romance, I guess. Um, Turning up the romance. That was a weird way to say that. So we have long chains of romantic messages that are shown in the courtroom. And honestly, I do. I go between wanting to be there to just kind of observe what people are seeing, but I have severe secondhand embarrassment a lot of the times. And I don't know how much, like, I don't know. I could just only imagine the tension. Like when I was listening to the Loinfire texts, I can only imagine what people were feeling in that room with Chad and Lori. Um, but yeah, there was long chains of romantic text messages, lots of references to loins. Um, I now cannot say that word. Even when people say like pork loin or something, I'm like, oh, I just think of that. Um, and there was a story that Chad wrote about how him and Lori met, swapping out their names with James and Elena. There's also a very damning text message between Chad and Lori. Chad said, well, Lori did inform him that the beneficiary to the insurance policy was changed. And Chad said, it will be interesting if it got changed after he had 2 bullets in his chest. Which Chad, we all know that you can't change your beneficiary after you pass away. So, I mean, not a very smart move on Chad, but just showing the whole indifference to what was going on in this situation. You just kind of see. And apparently, there was a few audible gasps from the gallery. I don't know who was doing that, but it just seemed like a very shocking thing to say. Um, and of course, we get to cross examination. Now, Vallow-Daybell, or Lori Vallow-Daybell, is just known for these really lengthy cross examinations where she's like, do you know every single thing that happened? So she walked the detective through what he saw at the scene and how the investigation was handled. Now, I feel like she did have a few valid questions. She did say, did you test for luminol? Did you test for this? So there were times that like she's like, why didn't you test us for I think she might have asked the gunshot residue, or maybe that's just me like projecting. But yeah, like I think she was trying to get these, and this is why I think that Detective Moffat, the original case agent, was not put on the stand after all, because the prosecution knew that she would be asking these questions of like, why didn't you originally prosecute me? Why did you wait 2 years? You thought it was self-defense. What were you thinking? So yeah, listen, I think that maybe she had a few valid questions, because again, those are questions we're asking. Like I said, I don't think that Lori is innocent in this situation. So yeah, take that with what you will. And then she again did, gaslight girl boss, gatekeep, whatever. She asked if he was familiar with Nephi, which he was not, and whether he was aware that there could have been a different Nephi in the Book of Mormon, because apparently there are a few books of or chapters of Nephi, different Nephis, and that maybe like that wasn't the one she was referring to, but there's not really a significant story. Every single LDS person, when you ask them about Nephi, they bring up this specific story. Even Adam Cox, who was a devout LDS member, did say, this is the story of Nephi. So it was kind of just like a not gotcha moment at all. Many people knew that she was referring to the original Nephi story, even if there was other Nephis in the Book of Mormon. So then Trina K was allowed to redirect, and she rested her case right after this. Let me go back to Justin Lums before I go to the thing. So Detective Duncan did say he looked for blood evidence that sometimes helps with the story, because Alex said that once he shot, well, okay, first of all, he was hit in the head with the bat. He shot Charles. Then he went to go wash his hands, but they noticed that there was no like towels with blood, something that like he put on his head to, like because he was hurt. Like there was something to clean up blood, which is very unusual in a scene like this. There was blood on Charles's left hand, which unfortunately meant that Charles was alive but for moments after he was shot in the heart, which meant that he touched his chest after being shot. Um, and then Lori asked, was this blood tested with this? And listen, like I said, she had a point. Okay, there's certain times where I was like, okay, why didn't they test this stuff? But again, they thought it was we could go into it all day about how negligent the police were, and I feel like some police were just really trying to help her out in this situation. Um, and so I don't know, it's just one of those frustrating things. Um, then we get to rest. The prosecution rested. Um, they said they have no more evidence, which showed us that they were not going to bring on Detective Moffat or the other witness after all. I don't know who that person was. Now, I believe that they did a recess to kind of see like, like if the defense like brings on their defense, like are they going to have witnesses, like like what's the schedule looking like? So they took the jury out. They asked Lori, are you planning on testifying, or do you have any defense witnesses? She said no, we will rest as well. And this is where we get to, like he said, like, are you sure? Because if you rest in front of the jury, because that's what she's supposed to do, is rest in front of the jury, you are not allowed to change your mind on Monday, we will start with jury questions, or we will start with jury instruction, or finalizing jury instructions the next day. And then on Monday, we will start with closing statements and then deliberation. She said, okay, I changed my mind. Like I said before, I feel like at first I was like, maybe she tried to do this intentionally, but I don't think that she knew that they would push it to Monday. The prosecution did request that they have it on Monday. And so I don't think she knew that, but I did think that like at that split second, she kind of figured, well, maybe if I have 4 days over this long weekend, maybe I can like make a defense or call Lonnie to work in, because Lonnie is just working 24/7 for Lori. All right. So she didn't end up resting in front of the jury. They dismissed the jury, told them to come in on Monday, and they were gonna do jury instructions the next day. So Lori Vallow-Daybell says that the state has failed to show evidence in this case. She filed a Rule 20 motion, stating that there was a lack of evidence showing a plan or conspiracy to kill Charles. This is like, I would say, like third or fourth time she has tried to get this case dismissed. Most of the time it was over like credibility of witnesses, prosecution, misconduct, that kind of stuff. They've all been overruled, and the judge denied this one as well. She said, there was valid evidence. So again, she's still trying to get this case dismissed. Then the defense rested. Now, this was something I was not expecting. Again, I was working during this time, so like I just saw like people's titles of their recaps, and they're like, the defense rested. I'm like, oh my god, Lori really rested. Like I really thought that she was going to fight to bring at least one witness in, or like maybe testify. I'm still 50-50 on whether or not I think she will testify. I think it's more unlikely now that she has released all of her witnesses, but still, again, I don't think Lori is that like intelligent. And I can only imagine that maybe she would call back Larnay Dorkin, and when they're like, well, you released him, she'd be like, okay, listen, like I've decided not to. I don't know. I have no idea. So the state requested closing arguments on Monday. So Lori agreed that they would start on Monday at 10:30 in the morning. So today, 10:30 in the morning, the closing statements will start. Now, I am interested to see what Lori. Or listen, I don't know if Lori will just use the same opening statement, but change it to like the evidence has shown. But Kay's opening statement is really good, and I think that she will push this thing home. Or Trina Kay, sorry, not Kay Woodcock. And so yeah, they did jury instruction. Like I said, it only took like a few hours. Then they typed it up and they sent it. Now, I'm curious to know if jury instruction is like, let's say that she decides not to rest. And this is why I feel like maybe he should have allowed her to rest. But then again, I know that they're just trying to cover all their bases. But I don't know, like if she decides not to rest and testify, do they have to redo this? Like, is it just a day wasted after jury instructions? I have no idea. Let's see, day 8. Let's see if there was anything important in the jury instructions. The jury was not in court this morning as the defense, prosecution, and judge reviewed jury instructions. Vallow-Daybell confirmed that she is not planning on presenting any evidence or calling any witnesses. Again, this is one of those questions. Every single time I tell people that she is not going to provide a defense, they're like, why did she defend herself? Now, I really think that she defended herself. She's defending herself. At first I was like, maybe it's because, like she didn't like her other defense attorneys in Idaho. But, and again, I tend not to believe her when she's like, oh, well, I wanted it because I know that there's not a lot of time. There's not a lot of time. And I understand that, like, judges, I was a hairdresser and I charged $500 and I wouldn't want them to like do a bad job, blah, blah, blah. So I like I understand why she wants her speedy trial. Most defense attorneys would not take this case on if they didn't have enough time to do a good job. But it's just curious. Like, why would she want to defend herself? Like, if she's not even going to put a defense on, what's the point? Like, she just put everybody through this, I guess, because she knew that, like, I really now think that she wants to get this case out of the way. She wants to get out of Arizona. I don't know how that will look with appeals because she is trying to appeal in Idaho, but I don't know if she has to be there presently. I don't know. Um, I guess we'll find out after Brandon Boudreaux's trial as well. Um, she also released the witnesses that were subpoenaed, and then they did set a trial date. Okay, I'm gonna say tentative because Brandon Boudreaux was not in the room, so they said that they would have to talk to him. But the trial may begin on May 30th at 10 in the morning, and will last or could last the last day of June 30th. They were not sure if this trial, like, it was set to kind of happen around the same time that the same time span that Charles was. But as we know, this was the case that was supposed to last like 5 to 6 weeks, and it ended up just lasting 2 weeks, plus a few days here and there. Um, and then there'll be a final trial management conference on May 14th. So we have quite a while until Brandon's trial. I think this will be great for the families because I think it would be great for them to, take a little break. I don't know what this will look like for Lori. As we know, Lori did have 2 interviews online, or not online, sorry, on TV. Will she do another interview to kind of sway the jury? We don't know. We don't even know if the jail will allow that. Um, but yeah, she has another trial after this. And listen, I know that we have already, sought justice for Tylee, JJ, and Tammy, and justice for Charles is just right around the corner. But I really do think that we need to stick it out for Brandon Boudreaux because while he is the lucky sole surviving victim of Lori Vallow's crimes, um, and he may seem like, insignificant in the way of like, you know, yes, like, he there was an attempt at his life, but he has his life. Um, I do think that there's a lot of like, after effects to this. I just recently watched an interview with Cresha Easton, who is Kay Woodcock's daughter, and Kay Woodcock, and she talked after her testimony, and she did say, like, after like Brandon was shot at, I would sleep on the couch with a gun, you know, thinking and trying to keep my head away from any windows, knowing that Alex could be out there waiting to take his shot. Because again, she was somebody with a insurance policy. Um, so Brandon Boudreaux was kind of the one who, like, even though Charles was the one who kind of his death started this whole saga, as we call it, Brandon's was the one who kind of sparked this like fear in people. I've seen testimony from several people who are close to this case, and they've said, you know, I feared for my life. We didn't know who was next. At this point, and sorry, my light just went out. Um, Alex was just somebody who could not be reasoned with, and we didn't know who was next. So and Brandon has been really gracious and understanding in this whole case. He was, if you watch I believe the either Hulu or Max documentary on this case, um he was the one who went to the morgue to identify JJ, because Larry Woodcock was sick with vertigo um after they found the kids when they flew into Idaho, and then Kay was like, I don't know if I can do this, because she didn't want to see her grandson like that. And so Brandon ended up saying, "Listen, I'll take one for the team. I know what JJ looks like. I'll identify him for you." So he's become really close with these family members, and so yeah, I'm gonna stick it out for justice for Brandon Boudreaux. I also feel like maybe if Lori is convicted in Brandon Boudreaux's, I think that there could be means for maybe convicting Melanie Pulowski. I don't know. I really don't know. I really hope there is a chance. But I think that his case might open the door for other people to be convicted. I think they're just trying to see this one out and see, like, if we can convict Lori, we might be able to convict other people. So I have no idea. But yeah, so that's what we're expecting. Week 3, I guess. Again, I don't know how long week 3 will go on. We're gonna have opening statements today at 10:30 in the morning, so it'll be 11:30 Arizona time, or 11 o'clock Arizona time, because there's a 30-minute delay. Actually, no, yeah, there's a 30-minute delay. Verdict will have only a 5-minute delay, which is great. But after that, the jury will deliberate. And now, this is only the second trial I've watched in real time. The first one was the Delphi trial, and when I tell you, I could feel the anxiety during deliberation, just anticipating, you know, the jury's taking too long. The jury's not taking long enough. Like um if they decide on a verdict by this day, that means that he's guilty or that means he's innocent. So I have no idea. Like I think I've now learned from this one case, the Delphi case, not to assume. But like I said, we're all human. We all, look too much into things sometimes, which I feel like is beneficial. So I don't know. I don't know what I'll feel during this verdict. Because like I said, like it only takes one juror to convict or to say, like, I don't believe it. Let's acquit. And a lot of us have Casey Anthony PTSD. Um, you know, seeing all of this damning evidence and then not getting a guilty verdict like we wanted. So I don't know. I'm hopeful though. I'm keeping a positive look on this one, as far as verdicts go. Um, because we did get justice for JJ, Tylee, and Tammy, um, in a conspiracy case. So they've done it once, they could do it again. My only concern is that this jury doesn't seem to be as concerned or like interested as the other jury is. But again, people are hard to read. I'm hard to read, so I don't know. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. What closing, or even if we'll have closing statements today, maybe Lori's going to testify. Either way, um, we'll see. I don't know what my recap is going to look like because, like I said, I don't know if we're even going to have a week's worth of content. This one was kind of long, longer than I expected. But like I said, there was a lot of evidence that was brought up. It wasn't just witness testimony. Um, but yeah, so stay tuned for that. I also have recently been going through this YouTube channel called Wordwise. If you don't know who Kit from Wordwise is, she is brilliant. She critiques books and various writings from a writer's perspective. She's a writer and an editor's perspective, and she has done the um she's taken one for the team and has decided to read all of Chad Daybell's books, as well as reading Visions of Glory. So I've been going through those videos. I have just finished the 3 videos on the Aaron for Emma trilogy, and I have found quite a lot of parallels between Chad Daybell's early writings. And let me remind you that these writings were done like in 2000. So this was like 25 years ago. And he has some of the same viewpoints still today. And I could see how somebody who writes this certain things could commit the crime that he was convicted of committing. It's very interesting. I I want to thank you for your service kit from Wordwise. I don't think I could read Chad's books, and I'm glad that I get to listen to you read them instead of, listening to Chad read them, or having to read the whole thing. And I think that, your critique is more like, you know, analytical and insightful than mine would be. So, um, I don't know. I've been going through those, so I think I'll make a video on like key parts of his, at least the books that I've read so far that I feel like are damning, because there are some very scary moments that I think that I'm like, okay, how did people not see that this guy was something was not right with him? Um, so there's that. I still want to go through the Richard Allen trial, or not trial, sorry, Richard Allen interrogation footage. We'll see if I'll have time this week to do that, because I don't know. I never really know when I'm gonna make a video. Um, but yeah, I really wanted to do that. Last week I was trying to do that, and then I ended up, watching a video. So yeah, we'll go through that. Um, and yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. Hopefully the audio was better. Like I said, I apologize for breathing into the camera too much, or camera, sorry, breathing into the microphone too much. I'm trying to like figure this out. I've never really talked in a microphone. And so yeah, thank you for sticking with me while we have, you know, these little snafus and technical difficulties. I promise I'll like figure this out eventually. um, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed this marathon 2-hour live. Um, and if you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them down below. If you want to, you can subscribe to join me for other deep dives. Um, I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to. Like I said, I'm not telling you what to do. And yeah, that's all I have for today. If you celebrated Easter yesterday or today or wherever you are, happy Easter. I it was really fun. Um I don't usually cook things, or I like to cook. I just, I don't want to deal with being in the kitchen while like other people are in the kitchen. So I decided to set up a Easter egg hunt for my family, and we are all adults. So like a lot of them are like, well, like just the kids, like, because like when you're in your 30s and you are the offspring of your uncles and aunts, you're still considered the kids. Like I still sit at the kids table even though I'm 32. But they were like, oh, maybe there's just the kids will do the Easter egg hunt. I was like, no, we're all doing the Easter egg hunt. Okay. Senior citizens included. Okay. They're not senior citizens. I just make fun of them. But they had a great time, and we like, they got lots of candy, some cash, like some prizes. I don't know. It was just a really fun time, and they were like, okay, I'm glad we did it. So yeah, that was my Easter. Thankfully I don't have to go to Easter Mass anymore. You know, I'm out of that because I don't think I could sit through that. But yeah, and then we ate lots of good food and whatever. But if you don't celebrate Easter, I hope you had a great weekend, or, a great Sunday. I hope you did something for yourself. I always encourage you to do as much self-care as you can. Stay hydrated. And that's all for now. So yeah, have a great day, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.